Going to get started here on Facebook. All right, actually a little bit tilted here. There we go. And right on cue, just as I start the live, that's when the cat starts screaming. It's like, honestly. Oh, Felix, knock it off. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. Welcome everyone on TikTok. Mark, good to see you. Right. All right. The cat's shut up now for now. We'll get started. I know this is a really late start tonight, guys. I wrote down some great notes from this morning, and then I went to go talk about them. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking about this morning? And it took me a minute to kind of get my bearings again of what I wanted to talk about. And today I wanted to talk about the power of belief and how that factors into our life and can determine whether or not we're happy or we are depressed or sad or anxious, any of those kind of things. So the power of belief, and we're going to talk about both personal and professional environments and how that can change. Okay. Just turn this down. There we go. I think Facebook's a little bit better. So if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tina. I'm a happiness coach. I help people go from being in a depressed, anxious state to being in a happier state. And I do this by sharing my experience, strength, and hope. These are tools that I actually use on a regular basis. So hopefully you're able to take away something from it. And if you have any questions, please type those in the chat and I will try to get to those as we go through this, okay? So this should be fun tonight. Sorry, cat hair. All right, so power of beliefs. So when we think of our beliefs, and we all know that if we don't believe that we can do something, then the likelihood of us being able to actually do that is very slim. And oftentimes we need to borrow somebody else's belief or to, in order to believe that something is possible, we have to see somebody else is able to do that. Um, and so oftentimes we get stuck if we don't believe that we can do something. So sometimes what I find with myself is it's it's good to set like big goals, but if in the back of my mind I don't truly believe that I can actually achieve that, then I will end up doing things that will cause me to not take the appropriate actions that I need in order to make those next steps forward. Or if there's a piece of it where I think that maybe um, there there's a there's a certain thing that I don't think is going to work, and I believe that this is going to be a problem, then until I'm able to solve that problem and believe that that problem is solvable, then I'm not able to move forward a lot of times. So this can keep us stuck for quite a while for things, and oftentimes this will happen in work environments a lot too, where if you are going through a situation where you know that you need to kind of speak up about something, but you don't actually speak up about it because you know that in the past that when you've tried to speak up about things that it doesn't get paid attention to, it gets shot down, you're really not heard. And so because of that, when there's other times that things come up, you are less likely to actually speak up about things. And it causes you to just kind of go through the motions of whatever structure. You just kind of show up, do the thing, and then leave, kind of, especially if you're in like a 9 to 5. Um, and those things can kind of end up hindering you. So when you're going through the motions, these are things. It's like, well, this is these are subtle ways that you can tell that you have a belief issue. If you're like, well, it is what it is, if you say any of those kind of sayings, then that is you saying that you don't believe the situation can be improved, it can be changed, that there's nothing that you can actually do about it. And that may be the case in this particular moment, but the the real power in belief is by being able to challenge your existing beliefs. And that is where growth actually happens. And oftentimes in work environments, you're not allowed to challenge the status quo. And this is good on both sides, whether you're a business owner or whether you're an employee. Being able to challenge the status quo, being able to say this process sucks, is really huge at being able to believe that you can actually make a difference. If people show up to work every day and they don't feel like anything they do actually matters and they just have to do the thing, follow the process, and they're not allowed to contribute in a better way, then their beliefs will become that, well, I just have to do what I'm told. And we end up conditioning the people that are working for us not to bring forward their ideas because they're too afraid to challenge the system, challenge the status quo. They don't want to be the one that, gets beat down for not following the process, right? So this is where you have to balance. So you need some structures in place in a business in order for it to function properly, but you also need to have the ability for people to challenge those processes, to be able to say, hey, I think there's a better way, and to be able to believe that they have the power to come forward with some better ideas and that it can be revamped. So if you find that you're either in a company or you're in a relationship or anything like that where this is the way it is, where it's like anybody who's like, no, it's got to be this way and no other way, and this is how it's done, then that I think is something that you want to take a look at your own beliefs. Do you actually believe that? Because what'll end up happening is you start to, if you don't believe it, but then you're just going through the motions because that's what's required of you, then you end up sabotaging yourself without really realizing it. And you start, because your actions, what end up happening is your beliefs are saying, hey, I don't think this is the right way to do things, but who am I to say, somebody with more authority, more power, more money, more this, whatever, more experience, any of those kind of things. But inside, you've got this like sense, this knowing that there's got to be a better way to do this. And but everybody else in the world is kind of telling you, no, it has to be this way. This is the only way. And it's like, but you just can't get rid of that voice that's telling you there is a better way. And I encourage you to actually start to believe in yourself more, that inner knowing, that inner voice. Now, I'm not saying just go out and be a dick about things. There's certain ways that you can present ideas that they're more likely to be received. However, if you keep going against that inner voice, that there's a better way, and you don't actually take any action on it, what you are doing in those moments is you are telling yourself through your own actions that what you think, what you believe is not valuable. And that isn't got anything to do with anybody else, because sometimes it could be just nice things, like, people are being nice, they're not even being toxic about it, but we will contribute to our own um, downfall by not, first of all, understanding what it is that we truly believe, and what is important to us, what do we actually value, and also believing that our voice actually matters. So building that inner strength within us, and understanding that our voice, even if it's wrong, still has a place, because it's through expressing your ideas, expressing what it is that you believe, that even if it's wrong and somebody comes back and challenges you and says, no, I think this, and they give compelling evidence, then this is the opportunity for you to actually to grow, to be able to change and modify your beliefs, because now you've been given a missing piece of information that you did not have previously. And now you're like, oh, actually, you're right. This is a better way. I hadn't looked at it from that perspective before. And this is why it's important to create an environment where people are allowed to challenge the status quo, that they're not going to get beat down for it. And this can be really challenging, because on one hand you want people to just follow the process because it's a proven process, and if you do this, then it'll be fine, right? Um, there's a dichotomy to be managed here, a balance of understanding what it is your belief. Um, think of it think of it in terms of religion too. So for me, in any spiritual beliefs or practices. So for me, when I was younger, I went to Sunday school. I did the thing, and I went to various Christian churches, Baptist, whatever, Catholic. I tried a bunch of different ones. Why? Because I had free reign to do what it is that I wanted to do and to investigate. And so what ended up happening though is I I got challenged of I had to, because I was a certain age, I had to go downstairs and be with the kids in Sunday school. I wasn't allowed to sit upstairs with the other adults and listen to the pastor. And I preferred that. To me, that was much more stimulating. I understood the concepts that he was talking about, and I found them very interesting and challenging. And so, because somebody was following the rules, I ended up leaving the church. So, I wasn't able to continue to grow. But as I got older and I went back and I started to revisit faith, at first I was very argumentative about it. I gave all these logical reasons why it was not true, why it was not helpful. Here's this quote, that quote, that would prove otherwise. But I think that is something that is important to go through. I think you should be allowed to challenge faith. You should be allowed to challenge beliefs and what is written. And I think that's part of the process of understanding, so that you can actually come to terms. If it's just beat down your throat that no, you just have to believe this, then you don't truly have a belief. You're following a process. You're going through the motions because that's what you've been told to do, rather than developing a personal connection, a true belief within yourself that, yes, you know what? This does ring true for me. This is something that I do believe. This is a value that I actually hold. And until somebody's allowed to actually challenge that belief and argue back of why that might not be true, and you should be able to allow somebody to argue those points, because if it is true and if the argument is solid, then they won't be able to overcome it. And I think part of the problem is people get into a state of fear because they get so stuck on the process or the structure of things that they believe that it ends up undermining the value behind it. And I think we need to separate the difference between, what your value is compared to, is there a better way to achieve the same result? Okay. And looking at the principle of the situation of why is that rule or that structure in place? Is it still valid? Does this still work for this particular um, area in our life? I've been in lots of companies where it's like they have SOPs and systems in place, only to find out when you go and you revisit them and you look at them, you're like, okay, half of these procedures haven't been updated, and this is not the process that people are actually following, and they are actually getting better results with the way that we're doing it now. So sometimes it was a matter of just updating the SOP. Other times it was like, oh, well, we're doing it just because that's what we were told. And when you start talking with the people that are actually doing the jobs and you get them to open up, then they kind of say, well, actually, I think we should do this instead. But they were too afraid to actually say that because they were told, follow the process. That's it. And you can end up limiting yourself without realizing it. So it's like, okay, being open to other ways of doing things. And I think that you should be able to challenge, is there a better way for us to do this? Is, if we could do this better, how could we do this better? Right? And asking those kind of things. So understanding what your values are, what your beliefs are, and do you believe that your voice actually matters? I think that's something that's really important. Hey, Peter, good to see you. And knowing that your voice, when you, because if you keep going against it, even in small ways, those those micro actions start stacking up of all those little times that you don't speak up, which conversely is part of the inner healing work, is when you start being able to speak up again about things that you don't agree with, like maybe things that you've been letting slide that you're like, it doesn't really matter, it's not worth the fight, not worth the fight. That's great, but how many times are you actually doing this? And I think guys are a little bit guilty of doing that, of just letting it slide and not wanting to upset the emotional woman, right? um, but I think that does a disservice on both sides. One, it does a disservice for you because your actions are now telling you that your feelings don't actually matter, that what you think, what you believe doesn't actually make a difference. And it's better just to let it slide. I'm not saying fight every little thing, but, and it also conveys the belief that your girlfriend, your wife, whatever, is too emotionally distraught to be able to handle a different point of view. And it's not really her emotions that are the problem in this case. I would say it is more a guy's problem, of that he's too afraid of her reaction to it, rather than if what you're saying and what you truly believe that your feelings are valuable, then speaking up about them actually matters, right? And if she is a good woman and she actually cares about you, then she might cry, she might feel upset, she might feel bad, but at the same time, if she truly cares, she will look at, okay, I didn't see it from that perspective before. Thank you for sharing that with me. And now you have the confidence in her. You believe that she will change her behavior, right? To, because you were open enough and honest about what it is, and you gave clear communication. That shows respect, that you believe that she would actually change those things. So, and that's just one example of it being in a relationship. This applies across the board. It applies with ourselves. So, like when we're in denial about things, going, it doesn't matter. Um, we have to challenge some of those beliefs. I'm like, does it really not matter what I think? Uh, does, like, is anything I do ever good enough? Like, wait a minute, I got to challenge that belief. I've got to argue that belief, and understand, why is that there? Where is this coming from? Is this just coming from a place of fear? Is this coming from me believing somebody else's opinion, ideas, over what I know to be true about myself, but I'm too afraid to fight back because of conditioned trauma responses or whatever? Um, those are the things. Peter, thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate you. Um, so being able to argue back, arguing isn't a bad thing. It's, um, as long as you're not doing it in a way that's damaging to the other person, you're arguing the situation, you're arguing the different processes, not the values. And you don't do it in a way that you're being punitive or critical. like belittling kind of critical of another person, that you can agree to disagree on things, and not in that, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree, like, because that's basically saying I'm right, you're wrong, but I'm done arguing with you because you're an idiot. You might as well just say that out loud. Somebody would have a whole lot more respect for you if you actually spoke that truth, right? um, but it's important not to, like, to a recognize when are you just going through the motions, you're just doing this process and not actually questioning, um, is this actually working, is there a better way to do this, do we have to do it in this manner, and being able to question ourselves, question others that we are connected with, either family member, friends, whatever. If somebody says, well, it's tradition, we have to do it this way. And but if you talk to some of the people behind the scenes, they're like, yeah, I know it's tradition, and we kind of do this thing every year, but I kind of want to do something different, right? And I've seen families do this before. They're like, oh, we have this Christmas thing, we do all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they'll decide, you know what, this year we're going to go to Mexico for Christmas. There's no snow, there's none of that stuff, but we're going to go do it. And why do they break pattern? They break tradition because they challenge their belief that, oh, we have to just follow the tradition, we have to follow this normal path, when truly in their heart they were like longing to do something different. And when we give ourselves permission to challenge our beliefs, it frees us up to be able to look at different possibilities of, is this what I really want, or is there something different, like, and it can be challenging and scary to do that, because it's like, okay, well, if you challenge yourself and you're kind of like, oh damn, I don't really want to do this, but if I change it, what is everybody else going to think? What are they going to say? They might tell me I'm crazy. And it's like, and maybe you are, but guess what? All the best leaders, all the best people that have ever accomplished something significant in their life are all the ones that at some point they were told that they were crazy, for sure, for sure, that their stuff wasn't going to work, right? So we have to be willing to challenge our beliefs and invite those arguments or disagreements, and not in a bad way. Um, and that can be extremely threatening, especially if you've grown up in a traumatic environment where fights got out of hand and they were not constructive. They weren't trying to get to a solution. They were trying to determine who was strong enough to be right. Um, See, me, I will argue a point, but I will also drop my viewpoint, my opinion, my belief if you actually provide me some evidence of that this is a better way. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Okay, I don't have to hang on to it. I'm not so attached to that, because my value system is always to be looking for a better solution, a better way to do things. It's always continuous improvement, always a growth mindset. So if you can provide me with details and evidence that this is a better way, then I will definitely drop my way of doing it and I'll try your way. And more times than not, I will also try your way, even if I don't fully believe, which gets me into problems, because then what ends up happening is those little micro actions start telling me that my beliefs, my opinions, my values don't matter. And I get stuck in those not speaking up. So it's a bit of a double edged sword that you got to balance out a little bit. Um, and so that's kind of like on the side of beliefs. And it, especially around religion, because I think some of the reasons my faith is so strong is because I've been allowed to, um, first of all, take what I like and leave the rest. So and I have it more as a personal connection, a direct connection. So I haven't been one to, I can't quote you a bunch of Bible scriptures or, sorry, hang on just a second. I just got any of those kind of things. But I know when something rings true, and I'm not so particular that if it comes from a different source, if it comes from a different religion, or somebody who's not religious, or it's science, or something like that, there's an energy to it that if it is true, that there is a universal truth to it, and it will ring true regardless of the source. And I think the story gets told in many different ways, and because just like uh, when I was in this group, when I was early recovery stuff, both my mom and I were in the group. My mom's got a very different way of expressing herself. She's much more emotional, and I tend to be more logical, which is funny because a lot of people that I hang around with, they're even more logical than me, so they see me as the emotional one, which is just, there's always somebody more emotional or more logical, vice versa. Anyway, so within the spectrum, right? So it's a matter of, um, and I used to get frustrated because I would explain something, and people would listen, but they didn't really get it. Then my mom would go and explain it, and she'd make like all these mistakes, and she'd be like, "Oh, I'm not saying it right," and but they like just loved her. They were like, "Oh my God, you make so much sense. I love the how you explain that." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, what just happened here?" And I used to get so mad about that until I realized that this is the importance of why we must all have a voice, because the way I explain things may resonate with some people, it may not resonate with somebody else. But the way my mom would explain things, those same people that resonate with me, they'd look at her and kind of go, I don't get what you're talking about. That's like just crazy talk. Meanwhile, we're saying the same thing, we're just explaining it in a different way. It's the same type of thing along the lines with process. There's many different roads to the truth, and it's not so important which road that you take as long as you find the truth, the connection within yourself. Okay? Um, and this led me to believing or thinking along the lines of, I don't know about you guys, but my God, he has got a sick sense of humor. He's twisted. I'm telling you. And have you ever heard the expression, thou protestest too much? So oftentimes what ends up happening is I may ask for a certain thing, or I may want um, ask for something in prayer. Usually I don't ask for specific things. I very rarely ask for specific things. I ask for guidance, I ask for direction, I ask for clarity a lot of times. Because if things are clear for me, I naturally will go forward and do things. If things are unclear, then I stay stuck. So I usually pray for clarity a lot of times. Um, and the funny thing is God will send you exactly what you need, not what you want. And I get so mad at him sometimes, but he laughs at me, right? Um, so God doesn't give you what you need. Gives you, uh, he doesn't give you what you want. He gives you what you need so that you can have what it is that you want. In other words, you have to be able to build the skills, the character, the awareness, the clarity, the understanding, all of the things around it in order to be able to receive what you want, right? So it's not, you don't get just the thing. It's like almost like an IKEA thing. It's like, okay, you asked for a bookshelf, here you go, here's all the component parts. Have fun. See ya. So that's kind of what it feels like sometimes, the way that God will deal with things, and he'll send you all the component parts, and then you get mad about it because, and he's like, well, you asked for a bookshelf, there you go, you got a bookshelf. It's like, well, okay, I wanted it put together. It's like, but you didn't ask for that. I gave you what it is that you asked for. You, this is what you need. You need to learn to be able to put this together. And oftentimes, God will send us somebody that is a complete irritation to us to be able to provide that lesson and to see if that is something that we actually want, right? If that is, and this is why I'm like, sometimes I just think God is up there and he's like just sitting back going, let's see what she does with this one. Ooh, she got real mad at that one. And I know that he just sits there and laughs at me, and I've always felt that with it. And I don't think it's a bad thing, right? It's like, I think it's the lessons that you teach your kids kind of thing, right? So they're not going to like it, but this is exactly what it is that they need to get through. Now, while you're going through this, it does not feel fun. And if you try to call this out and point this out to somebody that's in that mad phase, don't, because you're going to get the wrath that should have been directed at God directed at you. So, and you want to take all of those emotions to God. So if you are pissed off about what he's given you and you're like, what the fuck is this? What am I supposed to do with this? Take that to him. He can handle it. Give all of those emotions, give all of those feelings to God. Write them down, tell him off, whatever. You can't hurt his feelings. I mean, because if you could, you might want to get another God, because I don't know about you, but my God can handle all of my shit. All of it. All of it. Even my potty mouth, all of this stuff. He can handle all of it. That is the point. He can even handle when, even though it's hard, even when I choose to walk away and I don't want to listen. He's not afraid. He knows I'll be back. Right? That's the strength of it, right? Your God should be that strong. Your connection with God should be that strong. If it's not, that's okay. Start somewhere. Like, argue with him, right? Fight with him. That's the kind of God I want to be able to have. And it's not that I don't have a respect for him, but I have a belief that is strong enough that no matter what I do, how bad I am, and I'm not that bad, but how bad I am, that I know he will still love me. He will still forgive me. He will still guide me and give me the strength that I need. And he'll find a different way. If I'm not getting it in one way, he'll find a different way to show me. He'll send somebody else in, somebody else in. I'll get a different way of understanding. Yeah, God is love, absolutely. And so when we think of that, when if you truly love somebody and they're struggling and they're not getting a lesson, they're not understanding something, do you just go, well, I told you once, it's up to you to figure it out? That's not love. No, you're like, okay, hang on, okay, let's work this through. Tell me where you're at. Like, what do you think? Right? You have to have some sort of communication. And so this is where it's important to be able to communicate with God, to ourselves, and we can't do that. Ask and it'll be given, seek and you shall find. Absolutely. Right? And don't think that God is limited in how he can communicate with you, right? He can always communicate and find a way to be able to send a connection into you um, in the smallest ways. It's really strange. Um, and this kind of leads me to talking about challenges. So we get different challenges, and sometimes we feel like those challenges can be overwhelming, but I would encourage us to kind of take like a video game mindset to it. Okay, so I don't know if anybody has played the game Grand Theft Auto. Anybody's played that before? I did that as a stress reliever when I was working in transport and logistics, and I was feeling very frustrated, and I had the need to like feel like I could vent some of that frustration by murdering things when I got home, and a violent game just hit the spot for me. It gave that outlet that I needed. So there'd be days where I'd come home and I just like randomly trap some of the bystanders and I'd throw Molotov cocktails at them just so that I could listen to them scream. I know that's terrible, right? That's like, but we all have that side to us, and don't think that you don't. Everybody's got their monster side, okay? If that was one of the ways that I could express that and get that out and deal with that frustration, and all of us have it. Look at a kid. If a kid doesn't get what they want, they become violent. That is one of the things that they will do, and then you kind of have to train them not to do that because it's harmful to them and others, right? Um, so back to Grand Theft Auto. Does anybody remember that damn I don't know if it was like a dirt bike or it was a motorbike or something like that, and you had to follow the train. And it's like, I don't know how many times that I had the guy telling me, all you had to do was follow the damn train, CJ. That that quest was so challenging, and I played it and I played it and I played it and I played it, and I was like so frustrated. I got so close, and I was like wanting to throw the controller across the room, but I kept playing it. But I was so determined that I was definitely going to beat that level. I knew it was beatable. I knew why, because other people have been able to believe to beat it. So that is the importance of belief, because if I believed that that quest wasn't actually achievable, then I wouldn't have bothered trying, right? So this is the power of belief. So I know that this is beatable. And it's just a matter if I put in enough reps, if I start learning, like, okay, I took that turn. Oh, shit, I didn't pay attention to that. Oh, okay, I know coming up at this part, there's going to be this other challenge. So you just have to like fail enough times to be able and learning from each one of those failures and actually making the appropriate changes and adjustments so that you can actually get to that goal. And I'm telling you, when I finally beat that stupid that stupid quest, I was like, yeah, you get so excited about something so simple. But if you can kind of take that mindset with any of the challenges that you are facing in your day-to-day life, and you treat it like it's a video game, that there is a way to overcome this. There is a way to beat this. And it's a matter of, hey, sometimes I had to look up like little cheat or YouTube tutorials on how the hell do I get past this. Oh shit, I didn't see that there was this little button up in the top corner, or something like that. Whatever it is that you're doing, so learn to look up some of the cheat codes and, okay, what is it that I'm missing here? Find those missing pieces. Seek and you shall find, just like we were talking about, and then you can start to implement different ways of doing this. But you have to first start believing that it is beatable, right? This quest, this section of your life, this area or challenge that you're facing, it is beatable. There is a solution to it. Now, you may not like that solution. You may not like what's going to be the outcome of it. But even that, you can shift your belief around by asking yourself, well, what, like, how could I like this? What would make it worth it to do this work, right? What would make it worth it to get through this challenge? And leverage whatever you can, right? I know that stupid, all you had to do was follow the damn train, CJ quest was so hard, and it was so annoying and frustrating that I just like dug in going, no, I'm going to beat this damn thing, right? So if you have to use that, you're just determined to beat this damn thing, then do that. Maybe it's like, hey, I know when I get through on the other side of this, there are these other things. So sometimes we're more driven by reward, sometimes we're more driven by um, who it's going to benefit. Maybe it's just the challenge itself to know that this was hard. And because it was hard, that's why I really want to figure out how to do this. So, whatever it is that you need to leverage, or like, hey, it's going to be so fun when I actually get through on the other side, or you know what, when I finally get through this, I know that I won't have to go through this again because then I'll have all the skills, the structure, everything in place that I am never ever going to have to go through this challenge again. So, whatever it is that you need to be able to leverage that and tap into those power, that belief that it can be done. And don't be afraid to challenge um, your beliefs or the beliefs of others or the system or any of that kind of stuff, going, does it have to be done this way? And I mean, sometimes you do have to go along with the process. I mean, I've trained enough people over the years, and I've always said, you know what, this is what has worked for us, and I do want you to try and follow this as you're going along. If you find certain things that you think it could be done better, what I want you to do is write those things down, bring those to me, and then we'll talk about if that's a better way or not. And if you come up with a better idea, I am 100% okay with changing this process. But in the meantime, try it this way first, and then you let me know how you think it could be improved. Because I always want to encourage somebody to come up with a better system, a better process. I am not so attached to something I created just because I created it. I am looking for the most efficient, effective process, even if it's not mine, right? So those are always kind of how I try to operate. Um, and if anybody ever finds me that I am not doing that, I encourage challenging that belief, even if it's to the point where it's like, okay, maybe I have a strong argument. And I'm like, no, I really think that it's this way, right? And I'm really good at being able to argue this stuff. I had to defend myself against crazy shit of stuff that wasn't even true. So I often come, when I do find, I let a lot of stuff go, but when I do come to argue a point, I usually will not argue a point unless I can back it up with facts. And then when I can back it up with facts and I can logically argue, hey, no, because of this, this, and this is why I think this way. That is not, I always want it my way. That is an invitation to provide me additional information that maybe I'm not aware of. I am open to seeing my blind spots. And where I've gone wrong before is I don't state that. I will just argue it. And then because I'm a little bit more skilled than the other person of arguing a point, they will be quiet, and then they'll think that their point isn't valid. And it's not about who is right or wrong. It's of what is the best solution. So for myself, in learning how I could do that better, is by inviting the other person to contribute their ideas, even if it goes against my idea. And that takes a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to do that. You have to be willing to surrender that your idea is the best idea. That's not something a lot of people can do because it brings up fear. It's like, oh, well, am I going to have to admit that I am wrong about something? And it's like, oh, if I was wrong about this, does that end up like, is it kind of like a thread that ends up pulling and now the whole thing gets unraveled? And sometimes that's what scares us. It's like, well, if I have this particular mindset about this one thing and this, I I open my mind to the possibility that there's a different way. Oh, what if that shakes my foundation? What if that causes me to think or see things in a completely different way. Oh, that's unknown. That's scary. Like, no, I can't do that. And we end up fighting that stuff. Meanwhile, that could be the very solution, the very thing that you actually needed. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people in leadership positions. They have strong values, strong beliefs on how certain things can be done, but even they have to understand their limitations of where they're at. And they may have a whole stack of proof of exactly why they should be the ones listened to. However, if you become so um, stuck on that, you can be limiting yourself from being able to find the very solution that you were looking for. And I can promise you it's not going to be coming from somebody who thinks like you. It's going to come from somebody who thinks completely opposite of you, that sees things in a different way than you. And you're going to find them irritating. You're going to find them annoying. You're going to find them a pain in the ass and a whiner, crier, complainer, whatever. That, or they're mean, they're aggressive, whatever it is. They're too flighty. They have too much fun. They joke around. Oh, they're too much of a stickler to the rules. Whatever it is, and I can promise you, your solutions for the things that you're not able to solve on your own are not going to come from somebody who thinks like you. They're going to come from somebody who thinks very, very differently from you. And they're going to see things differently. So, in order for us to achieve success and to solve a lot of problems, the first part becomes being willing to have our beliefs challenged. And that's not something that's very comfortable. It's scary. So being able to face that and understand that this is coming from a place of love, and if you create that kind of environment, whether that's personally with yourself, with your relationships, friendships, family, um, or business, and that could be with your vendors, with your customers, with your employees, any of those aspects of business, of being able to be willing to suspend your belief to see a different viewpoint. And that just comes from the place of being able to seek to understand, um, instead of always assuming that we have the right way. So now, like I said, there's always challenges. This is not a black and white. This is a dichotomy to be managed, right? So sometimes you're going to hit the mark and sometimes you're going to miss it, and it's about learning how to correct that and understand those behaviors. And if you realize, I know myself, when I have realized that I was too firm or adamant, is another word, if I was too firm or adamant about things should go this particular way, sometimes I was right, but I would also go back and I would talk with people and I would say, okay, thank you for following the process the way I set it out. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Did that work out the way that you thought it was? Was it better? Or do you think that we could improve upon it? And then getting that feedback, soliciting that feedback from whoever, right? Now, a lot of times, because I don't get very firm about structures or following certain things unless I have done a lot of due diligence. Because I won't be that firm. I'm usually very flexible, but when I am finally firm on something, then I've got enough data behind me to know that I know what I'm talking about. But if I have some uncertainty or doubt, then I will allow for flexibility in the play. So oftentimes when I do get firm about things, I do get the yeah, you were right kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be right. If your way was better, I am perfectly fine with your way being better. We're just looking for the best process. And if you have information I don't see, because I'm aware that I have blind spots. The worst fault of all is to be guilty of none, right? So to be aware of none. So yeah, exactly, right? So So hopefully that is helpful to you guys. The power of beliefs, the not being afraid to have those beliefs challenged. Psychic Lizzie. All right. Psychic Lizzie, are you not to 1,000 followers yet that you can do your own live? Maybe people need to help Psychic Lizzie out by giving her 1,000 followers. Yeah, how many members do you have? Yeah, I can't quite see. Anyway, we're wrapping up here. So if you would like to inbox Psychic Lizzie as she is requesting, I will leave that up to your own discretion. I believe that you will be able to know whether or not that is for you. So, guys, I hope this was helpful. The recordings will be posted on my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125, and you can catch those there. And I will be back on again tomorrow night. Thank you so much, Mark, Peter. Great to see you guys always. Peter, thank you so much for the gifts. I really, really appreciate you. You guys are the best. All right. So have a great night, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.